Hello and welcome to this episode of Carmen's Coaching Corner. And this week I have my special guest, Debra Brunk, with me. And Debra and I have been kind of peers and working in groups together for about the last 2 years, I'd say, right? We are mastermind buddies. And what I love about Debra is you just have such a wealth of expertise and knowledge in the field that you're in. And Debra is a nutritionist. I'm just going to give you a little bit of information about Debra. She kindly shared with me her bio, so I'm just going to read her bio to everyone so that you have a really good sense of who Debra is and what her background and experience is. So Debra is the founder and research director of New Science Solutions, a nutrition research and consulting firm based in Phoenix, Arizona. As a nutritionist and educator, Debra creates tailored nutrition and lifestyle plans to help individuals living with chronic pain thrive. Debra started her career in engineering after receiving a BS in chemical engineering from the Colorado School of Mines and a PhD in chemical engineering and biochemistry from Cornell University. When her health began to suffer, she was drawn back to school on a quest to solve her own and others' health challenges. She completed an MS in Nutrition and Integrative Health at Maryland University of Integrative Health and committed herself to improving human health with science-based nutritional solutions. Debra supplements her education and training by maintaining CNS, Certified Nutrition Specialist, and an RYT 200 Registered Yoga Teacher certifications, as well as membership with the American College of Nutrition. And I know this about Debra, she's also loves to do yoga, knitting, and I've seen evidence of what you make, and it's amazing stuff, and sweaters, and I love that you make. On my list, on my list, I have on my wish list is for Debra to make me one of her beautiful sweaters. One of these days. Because I love the fact that you do that for your stress relief, right?
It's very meditative, actually. So, yeah. And to learn it, it's a great way to be meditative and feel like you're actually accomplishing something at the same time.
Yes. I feel like that about cooking and baking.
Yes, I used to feel that way about cooking. When I became a nutritionist, it became more of a job. But there were still times that I used to knead the dough and bake bread.
It's so funny you just said that, because I made for the very first time, literally just on New Year's Eve, English muffins. We have to call them English muffins.
Yes.
We call them English muffins in the US, but in England they're just muffins, okay? But no, that's different.
Okay.
That's a different batter, and you fry those. But it's the first time I was making English muffins, and there was this kind of therapeutic feeling when you're kneading the dough and making it more elastic and stuff like that, to get the yeast activated and stuff like. And it was really satisfying to actually make my own English muffins. I know it sounds pathetic, but it was. It gave me such a sense of satisfaction just to see these were homemade, and it was just so much fun to see the process, and it was an exercise in patience for me, because of course when you're making bread, any kind of bread dough, you have to wait for it to rise, and it's not like you're making cupcakes where you just make the batter and throw them in the oven. You have to wait for the dough to rise and stuff like that. So for me, and I'm naturally not a very patient person, so this was kind of like a test for me. Like, I'm going to make these English muffins and see how I do with it from a patient's perspective. And it was fine, because you just kind of made the dough and I left it, and it was good. And then I made them the next day, kind of cooked them up the next day,
and they are so much better than the stuff buying the store.
God, it's totally different flavor.
You get a lot from it, but yeah.
And you, as a nutritionist, know all about this, because you work with food, you work with supplements and things like that. So, do you want to tell me a little bit more about what you do?
Well, I'm a nutritionist, and this is it's always a tough thing to explain to people, because a lot of folks think a nutritionist is, somebody's just going to tell you that you need to eat better. And yes, that is part of it. But the point is, we all know, I think, in general, that we need to eat better. Right. We know we need to sleep better. We know we need to exercise more. We know all this stuff, right? It's the new year. It's like Resolution City right now, right? I think everybody's looking for resolutions. They're going to last 2 weeks.
Right.
And so it's like, well, why do I need help? And really what I've started to do when I describe what I do is it's a couple of things, but it's, you know, we're also busy. But there's the other thing of most of us don't know how to start. And you might go to the doctor, and as Carmen said, you know, I work with people with chronic pain, and they might say, oh, well, you need to change your diet. Well, that's all they're going to tell you. And you as a patient are like, well, what does that mean? Right. And so my goals when I work with folks are kind of, there's kind of three. I always think the three-legged stool concept. One is to meet them where they're at. And that is really just to understand, what have they tried? What's worked? What hasn't worked? What are they frustrated with? How much time do they have? All those kinds of things. And so then from that, it is developing a plan that works for them. So it's not just saying, hey, yeah, go do this 6-week diet. It is, you know, what do we need to start with? What's a step or 2 or 3 that you can take right now that you feel will not totally stress you out, that you can be successful with? And so it's starting with those small baby steps. A second thing that I do is really try to educate, because this is all about long-term change. Yes. And again, that's the biggest issue with resolutions and fad diets, or whatever you want to call them, is they're kind of these short-term 6-week things, get that long. Right. And then you kind of just go back to what you were doing. There may be a transition. Right. You go back to what you were doing. And the goal is long-term. You spend a lot of time becoming really mindful about food and what kind of triggers certain things, whether it's cravings or whatever it is. And so we look at, you know, what are some real things that you can do that are very concrete and not abstract to make changes. And then the third thing is really just trying to synthesize all the information that's out there, because that's another thing that really stops people from making these changes. Is we call it Dr. Google in the industry. And, you know, it's like a doctor says, you have this, you have this, you have this, you go, you do research, you find, you know, and then you see, oh yeah, there's all this, and everybody says something different. And, you know, my job really, I see as a nutritionist, and I have on the is I read this literature, I look at it, I look to see if it's evidence-based. That's a really strong piece of my business. And then we talk about, you know, what your questions are or whatever, but then let's move to something that really we know works. And so when I use supplements, I'm using supplements that I know will really work. You know, if we suggest a dietary change or food change or stress relief or whatever it is, there's research out there that I know really works. And so I basically synthesize all that information for my clients. And so you don't have to go searching on Dr. Google and get confused. And that's my job, is to get confused and kind of weed through it all and figure out what makes sense.
Yeah, I love that you said all of that, because there is such a plethora of information out there. And it was just on the news locally here that somebody had posted, I think it was on some social media platform, about grape juice stopping the stomach flu or stuff like that. And you really have to be really discerning about what is it that I'm going to believe here, and do your own fact finding and just find the truth. And what I love about what you bring to the table, Debra, is that I've seen you in action, and I know you so well now that you know, when Debra says she's done all the research and she's synthesized all the information, she's absolutely done that. And I would totally trust you as a nutritionist.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, because I know you say you do what you said you've done, you know, with all the research and everything. So you kind of touched upon it briefly, but what makes you different as a nutritionist? Well, because there's a ton of nutritionists out there, and they all do different things.
Right, they all do different things, and I think we all kind of have our own niche or whatever. But I believe that I'm different in a couple of ways, and it really comes down to my background and my experience, as you mentioned.
I was going to say your engineering background must come in really handy in this field.
It does, because when you think about health in general, I like to think of I like to think of my clients as a puzzle, and a client may not like to think of themselves that way. But, you know, what it does for me is everyone's very different. And so my job during, you know, the first, really the entire time I'm working with someone, but certainly with the initial consultation, is to find out everything I can about that person. So just a lot of fact finding, it's a lot of data collection, you know, all the things engineers like to do. And then, you know, an engineer's role is to optimize, right? And in this case, my goal is to optimize health. But there's really two prongs that I take, and I think that's what makes me so different. So we talk about the engineering piece, which is I really like it as the biochemistry of the body, and I'm really looking at root cause. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, that's one of the biggest issues with healthcare these days is a lot of folks are not looking at root cause. There's kind of a little flow chart folks follow, and they look at, oh, you have this symptom, and it's like, oh, give them this drug, right? And the issue with that is you're treating something downstream, but the initial thing that caused the problem is still happening. So really all you're doing is masking. Putting a Band-Aid on it. You're putting a Band-Aid on it. And in the case for most things that happen in the body, and this is with biochemistry, I find it fascinating, the body is going to find another way to tell you that something is wrong. Yeah. And so then you get another symptom and another, you know. Yeah. And because you haven't addressed this thing upstream. And so I really like that biochemistry piece and trying to delve into, okay, what's going on here? Look at somebody where they're at again, maybe taking a couple medications, a couple supplements, what's going on with their biochemistry, and how do we kind of go all the way back to the beginning and see what we can fix, so to speak. This is much fixing, it's more about rebalancing often. It's usually about which nutrients are not present, or maybe there's too many present that are causing things to go too slowly or too fast, whatever it is. But that's sort of the engineering piece. And I like that too, because there's a lot of different paths. And again, that's the issue with modern medicine is it's sort of like, oh, well, somebody has diabetes and that's what they have. Right. I said, well, there's a lot of different ways that somebody can get diabetes. And we want to explore, well, which way did you get diabetes? And then it's not about treating the quote unquote diabetes, it's what are we treating really? Yeah. And getting to the root cause. And then, but the second thing, and this is where it's really balanced between the two, and what I find so fascinating is when I went back to school, I got my master's in nutrition integrative health. And the integrative health piece is what's really important, because that to me is a little bit more of a top-down approach. I really look at a person as a whole person. Right. So I'm looking at, yes, how all of their organs work and interrelate. There is no organ, maybe we talk about heart disease, right? But heart disease doesn't happen by itself. Right. Yes, everything else in the body is affected one way or the other, and then affects the heart. So it's important to look at that, but then it's also important to look at all of the things going on. So, nutritionist, food, yes, and I do focus on food. But there's all the other things going on. What's your stress level? Yeah, that's huge. How are you sleeping? What are your relationships like? Yes. Do you love your job? Do you hate your job? Right. All of these things are important, and it's not to say that we can fix all of them, so to speak, but a lot of it is bringing in awareness for how these different things that are going on in your life affect how you feel. And I always like to use stress as an example, because every client I've ever had is stressed. And if somebody is super, super stressed, one of the last things I will actually do is suggest a dietary change. Because for most people, that's just so stressful. Yeah. And so what I've done is just compounded the stress. Yeah. And so as an integrative health practitioner, I have to look at that and say, well, in this case, probably the lowest hanging fruit and maybe root cause is stress. How do we reduce stress? Yeah. How do we help manage stress? I've talked with a lot of clients, we spend our entire time just talking about what are some things you can do to reduce and help with stress. And then, as you mentioned, I'm also a yoga teacher. So we work on breath, we work on other things. Second, third, fourth appointment, we may then talk about, okay, here's some foods or supplements that you can incorporate into your diet to help your body manage stress better. Or here are some foods we can try to get rid of. Sugar is the common one, right? That we're all addicted to, but can help your body manage stress better. Yes. But we talk about what works for you, and are you ready at this point to deal with whatever this is, whether it's taking different food in or getting food out. Are you ready for that, or is that still too stressful? And so for me, it's a balance. And it goes back to meeting someone where they're at. What are their expectations? making sure those expectations are reasonable.
Yes.
But then, working kind of from that top-down and also bottom-up approach to really try to make sure that we address the problem. And, the key goal is, for me, is to help someone feel better.
Yeah, exactly.
And to give them the tools that they can feel better, and feel better longer, but really ideally, throughout their life.
Yeah, so, and you touched on so many different things that just made my mind go like this.
Sorry.
No. No, it's a great thing, because one of the things that, when you're working with extremely busy people and then they're thinking about, one of the objections that they always have is, I don't have the time to do this, right? And it's like you were saying, you don't want to add to the stress that somebody's already feeling. You want to make them feel like this is something that they get to do, right? This is something that they get to do in order to make the changes that they want to experience happen. And if you can make it feel like this is just like they're brushing their teeth every day kind of thing, it's just part of their routine, right? It just makes it so much easier for them. So, if you are seriously thinking about working with a coach or a nutritionist, especially if you're waking up every day and you're feeling sluggish, you suffer with a lot of headaches, stress has so many different fingers out there, doesn't it?
Oh, yes.
It really does. And
it destroys the body.
It does.
It really does.
It really does destroy the body. And, things that I've read and researched, and I haven't come from it from a nutritional perspective, but when you talked about sugar, sugar can cause a lot of anxiety in the system. And one of the first things, when I was having a lot of panic attacks and anxiety as a result of stress, right? Because that was the result, and I wasn't touching the things at the root cause at the time because I didn't know any different, and I've learned a lot since then. But one of the first things I did was cut out sugar, because I recognized that if I had chocolates or sweets or something with sugar in it, or a lot of carbs which can turn into sugars, when I realized that, what was happening is like, okay, I need to stop eating sugar. So I literally cut out alcohol and sugar in my diet at that point in time. Plus I did a lot of other things, because it's like you were saying, Deborah, it's like, it's not just one thing can fix everything. There's a lot of different factors that come into why you're feeling, your system is reacting, your body is reacting in a certain way. And it's all those other, I knew I was stressed at work, so how could I minimize my stress at work? I just didn't really like my job very much at the time. I was traveling, I was traveling all over the world. When I was really in my high stress level, I was traveling all over the world, doing, deploying a new IT system. It's funny that you and I come from kind of like a techie background, and now we're doing all this stuff, right? Tells you something, right?
And we both came to it, though, because of our own experience.
Yeah, exactly, and I knew that's something I had to change. Something had to change. It was kind of like a tipping point for me, that something had to change. Kind of like your background, right? When your body is saying to you, you need to do shit differently, right? You need to listen, because it's telling you that for a reason. So how does somebody work with you? How do you work with your clients? Because you kind of described some of that.
But I did describe a lot of it. I think really the thing, again, it's different working with me is I spend the time. And we are so used to our healthcare environment where you see a doctor or whoever, and maybe 10 minutes if you're lucky.
Right.
My initial consultations are 2 hours long, and that's the time I spend with you, and we talk about all these things that probably most health practitioners have not talked with you about, and we really dive pretty deep into some things. So really looking at triggers, things that whatever you're coming to, whatever it is that kind of toppled you over the edge to make the change, you can talk about. What are your what's triggering that? How do you feel? How does it make you feel? What makes you feel better? What makes you feel worse? All those things. Again, that's a data gathering piece. And then, at the end of that, we really try to come up with a loose plan, I would say, which is kind of like, I want somebody to leave knowing that there's 1 or 2 things that they can do, and to focus on. Again, the idea is not to overwhelm. And it's that partnership. I am not somebody who just says, hey, you are going to do this, 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 and this, and we'll see you next time,
We take this pill and that's it, right?
Well, right. And, I think that's been found that doesn't work. And so it is really working together on what do you feel you can take on? What can you commit to? And then, of course, they're holding a space, helping you be accountable for it as well. And then for all of my new clients, what I do is I do a three-session package. Yeah. And the idea is to have that sort of long initial session where we get to know each other, feel comfortable with each other, send someone off to try some things, and just get a little bit more aware, and then be there. And then a couple of follow-up sessions to say what's working, what isn't working, so that we can kind of tweak things and get things where they need to go. If we need to do some testing, I can order blood tests and different type of specialty functional tests. If that's something people are interested in, we can add that into the mix of information and continue to tweak. But the idea of doing 3 is just to make sure that we get I get individuals sort of on a path where they feel like they have some control. Right. And some folks after 3 sessions are like, I've got this. I feel like I know what I'm doing. Other folks, it's just a really good foundation, and we continue to work from there. Yeah. But I have found just with my experience, you do 1 session and it's just not enough.
It's not enough.
And you end up sending somebody off and they don't feel, they feel great after that first session, but they still have a little bit of that overwhelm and just isn't enough support.
It really isn't it. For some reason, the analogy of learning how to drive a car for the first time, right?
But learning how to do anything.
Right.
Really.
Yeah, exactly. The first session is kind of like, okay, this is how you check your mirrors, make sure they're adjusted, and put your seatbelt on, and now you can't drive the car from that place.
You give it a stick, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I learned using the stick.
I did too.
And working with any kind of coach, it's not a quick fix thing. It's not a 1 session deal and everything's done. It's if you go in with that mindset, you're going to have your expectation is going to be completely disappointing. You have to go in with the mindset that it's like anything. When you're making change, it's consistency and regular sessions. And then at some point, it's kind of like you can drive the car on your own now. Off you go, right?
Right.
Would you agree?
I agree, and I think it's the other piece to that is that idea that you have a partner, you have somebody that has your back.
Yes.
During this. So again, a lot of reason why people struggle with change is they try to do it on their own. And so having that help and that support is, I think, really key in any kind of change process. It's not to say you can't do it on your own, but I think in general it's a lot easier and it's a better experience, I think. Well, and you're just more likely to succeed.
That's so true. And when you have a mentor or a coach or somebody just guiding you through that process, you really are going to, your likelihood of success is going to multiply when you're doing it on your own. If I couldn't run my coaching business without my business coach, right? Or my support group of other coaches that I work with. And so for me, I've really, I'm skeptical. I'm like, what the hell do I need? When I first went into this,
I'm very independent.
Yeah,
I
used to be called Miss Independent. People used to get so mad with me because I never would ask for help. But when I actually realized the benefit of asking for help and how much further I was able to go because I had that help, it makes a tremendous impact for you. It really, really does. So, what would you say one of the most common symptoms people have that you come across? I think you mentioned headaches and stuff like that.
Joint pain is a huge one. A lot of people have joint pain. It actually keeps them from exercising or feeling like they can exercise. Oh my gosh, I come to it, and then I do get just a lot of the folks with diabetes and things with more chronic diseases. Diabetes is a big one. But in terms of pain, I would say joint pain is a big one. There's the knee pain, there's the neck pain, there's the shoulder pain, wrist pain. I mean, it goes on and on and on.
And it's so funny because you just live with it. A lot of us just kind of live with it.
Exactly, and that's I think an interesting part, and I think that's one of the things I always try to do with my intake forms and during that initial session is to help people recognize that is not
right. It's not normal.
Well, we accept it as normal.
Yeah,
it's not.
But it's normal.
And so when you can get rid of that, whatever it is that you're living with, you suddenly just become happier. You're more engaged in life. You can do more. And it really just opens you up to a lot more opportunities.
It really does.
And so the key is getting to a point where it's sort of understanding again what those triggers are.
Yeah.
And it may be going back 5 years. So when did that thing start?
Right.
And trying to figure out, was there something that happened at that same time? Or in a lot of cases, it really is just sort of, it's funny, we call it, wear and tear of the joints. Well, joints are pretty amazing things, and our body's amazing, and it's continuously regenerating. So the wear and tear hypothesis really doesn't work out. It's more we're loading up with things that our body sees as inflammatory. Yes. It can't get rid of, and so you end up with a lot of inflammation and things like that. And in general, inflammation, it's one of those things, you hear this a lot, and there's different types of inflammation, but inflammation really is sort of I call it a sort of a semi-root cause, because if you can deal with getting rid of a lot of inflammation, a lot of symptoms, a lot of things actually go away. Yeah. And then it's just sort of figuring out, okay, what was it that caused that? And for a lot of people, and again, you see this as you get older, it's sort of just build up. Yeah. If you continue to eat, we keep using sugar, right? But if you continue to eat sugar, and sugar is huge. I mean,
it's in everything.
It's in everything, yeah. And I think there's something that says, what do we eat, 22 teaspoons of sugar a day or something on average. I mean, it's just insane. Yeah. And you think, oh, okay, that's 22 teaspoons, whatever. But then you add that up over the course of a year, it's pounds and pounds and pounds, and you think, well, yeah. And your body just doesn't handle it well. It's never meant to handle it. And so it does what it can.
That's why our bodies are so amazing, right? Because it's putting out all these things to kind of fight off disease constantly, right? Dis-ease in the body and all that kind of stuff. And we need to help it.
Right.
We need to help it, take care of it.
And I think that's sort of a mind shift too, is at least I grew up this way. I mean, I guess really no appreciation for my body per se, just sort of this thing, and you go through it with your life and you eat and whatever, but there was not, any real
mindfulness around.
There's no mindfulness around it, exactly. And then, I think again with having health issues and then going through this nutrition program and then working with folks on this area, in this area, it is that transition of suddenly recognizing your body is sort of like anything else. It's I don't want to call it a tool exactly, but it is something that you have to take care of, like your car analogy. Yeah. It's like a car, and you go and you get your oil changed, and you get your 5,000 mile service and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, the body's a little different. It needs a little bit more daily care. But you sort of realize that so many of us go through and we never do. We never get the oil change. We know that stuff, and we just keep expecting our body to behave and act the same way when we're 15 years old, and it's not going to do that. And essentially what I was like using, inflammation or oxidation is like rust. Yes. And so it's a really good analogy, and it's sort of like, well, what if your body's rusting out? And it's not a perfect analogy, but it explains a lot of the creakiness and the pain and all that kind of stuff. Is you're just sort of gumping things up.
You really are.
Yeah. And so it's just, I think, a lot of working again with someone and doing this kind of work as opposed to just doing a diet. Again, a diet is, I'm going to eat this way for certain. What you tend to miss with that is this growing mindfulness and awareness around your body and what it does for you, and the understanding of, okay, I eat this food and I feel great. I eat this food and I feel awful, or I get a red face, or I get shaky, or I get, whatever.
Or I break out,
all of those things, and then kind of making that decision, well, is it worth it? And that's really the key point, is not somebody saying, no, don't eat this, unless, of course, you are, definitely allergic to something, but is to give you then that power and that knowledge to say, I know this is what this food is going to do for me. I'm staring at the chocolate brownies. Am I going to eat them or not? Right. And then if you decide to eat them, go for it, enjoy it.
Yeah, but don't do it every single day.
Don't do it every day.
And eat pounds and pounds of chocolate brownies.
But that's where, again, most of that, if you start eating pounds and pounds, there's some mindlessness there. And so it's really just working on that mindfulness and then owning. I'm going to eat this, I'm not going to eat this, and I'm fine with it. But also then having that education to understand this is what it does to my body specifically, as opposed to, again, the broad population and all those kinds of things, which, everybody reacts differently to different foods and different things.
And that's true. It's not about being another sheep in the herd. It's about what works for me as an individual and what can I do to make my body better, work better, more efficiently for me. Going back to your engineering, you want to make your body work efficiently for you, and it just has so many different benefits, side benefits as a result of that. I need to wrap this up, Deborah.
Yes. Well, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. It's a pleasure having you. And so, what are the ways that people can get connected with you?
Well, probably the best way actually is just through my website.
Okay.
I have a lot of information on my website. My company is called New Science Solutions, and it's spelled kind of weird. It's NUSCIENCESOLUTIONS, all one word.com. The new, again, is for nutrition, so scientific nutrition. NutriScienceSolutions.com. And then from there, you can email me, you can get in touch with me, you can schedule a complimentary 20-minute
website.
Thank you. I just had that redone. and then of course my phone number's on there as well. So.
And I will put Deborah's information in the verbiage with this video. But again, thank you so much, Deborah, for sharing your wisdom on today's coaching corner. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, and Happy New Year.
Oh, Happy New Year to you too. Happy New Year to all of you. So as always, I like to end my coaching corner saying, in love and light to your transformation and growth, Carmen.
To get started, please call or email me or schedule an appointment on my website.